Our next thing we're going to talk about is sustainability. The last time, this time last year, we were just getting into the kickoff of the sustainability study. So that's operational practices, identify best practices, and lay the foundation for future improvements. Make the lamb industry more efficient, enhance our industry's reputation. And to tell the incredible story of what we do. As some of you know, I'm a very passionate person, and I love this industry. And I spread that word around the country. And the number one thing I hear about from producers and consumers and foodies is sustainability. And what do we do with our livestock? How do we raise it? What do we feed it? What kind of shelters? What kind of trailer you put it in? You wouldn't believe some of the questions. But they want to know. They're interested. And not only that, they're looking at the packages in the meat case. They want to know more information on that too. Our definition of sustainability: the continued ability to provide consumers with high quality sheep and lamb products in a way that sustains our industry and its families, employees, and communities, and does not reduce the capacity of environment to provide for the needs of future generations. Sustainability is one of the greatest opportunities to increase our industry profitability and growth and increase demand for American lamb. To run a sustainable business is just plain good business. American lamb industry sustainability practices are inherited in the land, the stewardship, animal care, and community outreach. This is a pretty interesting little piece that Megan got, and I really enjoyed this slide here because it tells a little bit about why do we need to spend money on sustainability and why do we need to do this. If you look, American lamb consumers are well-educated, higher incomes, look for healthy, high-quality, favorable foods. And the big thing there is healthy. And like I said previously, these young we have now looking at the meat case, they're looking for something healthy to maintain and something that they can trust and to feed their family. You know, you have the media says about E. coli and other things that, you know, the media really pushes. And they're scared. They want somebody to trust when they go to the retail or food service, or even when they contact you, get something off your farm. They want to have that trust and faith in whatever they're buying and putting in their mouth, they're going to live to see tomorrow. And it might sound stupid, but that's what's out there. Retailers, that's pretty significant right now because they're dictating to suppliers what they're going to do. You all heard that the pigs and their crates and the chickens with the egg cages, where the suppliers and food people are demanding from suppliers, if you don't do it, we're not buying from you anymore. Walmart came out a couple months ago, I believe, and made it mandatory that their suppliers will be having a sustainability program or plan, or they will not buy anything from their suppliers anymore. So it's going to the supplier and our restaurants, retailers also. And then at the bottom are chefs. They're doing more local promotions than ever before. They want to highlight anything that's close to their establishment, and they want to really tell their customers, hey, this is local, this is sustainable product, this is something that is taken care of by our producers and take pride in. This is a sustainability work group that we had, and Cody Himke, are you here? If you could stand up, that's Cody. Leo Tammy, another one. There's Leo's on crutches, so he can't stand up. But then again, he got special privilege on the airport. He got to go on the plane faster. He got to ride the little cart to go from point A to point B. But he was walking pretty good last night after a couple beers, so I don't know. Clint Krebs is on it. Dan Merkel, is he here? Dan was, okay. And then Tom Watson. These were the gentlemen that was on this committee that worked very, very hard. They spent a lot of time on teleconference calls, and I'm going to now introduce Janet Greenlee and Kenton Harmer, these are the two people that did the study, and they can tell you a little bit more about the sustainability study.
Where do we point it?
Right there, just boom that way.
You're the pointer.
All right.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you. The work we did and the sustainability working group that you put together, we've done a lot of sustainability work in the ag industry, and this industry is so passionate and so committed. I want to commend, first of all, the gentleman that worked with us on setting up the survey criteria, on defining the production systems, on defining the regions, and spending hours with us on the conference call that all the calls that we put together, willing to really make sure that this was right for the industry, that the survey tool that we put together was going to be best representative and most embraced by the industry members. There was such passion in the room that I really need to commend the industry. Then we were able to do 19 visits, on-site visits with producers and feeders. And these families opened up their ranches, they opened up their offices, they opened up their favorite restaurants. We really got a great taste of what goes on day to day, and that really helped us inform the survey and make it as representative of the things that you face on a daily basis. We sent out a survey to more than 7,000 industry members. I'm hoping everybody in the room had an opportunity to at least receive what was sent out. And this is to producers, feeders of lamb meat. And we got more than 1,100 survey responses back. That actually is a significant response rate. And it gives us really a great snapshot in time of what goes on in the industry. It's self-reported, which is an acceptable industry standard where we identify something as self-reported, but it's still a very valid snapshot. It is also an internal benchmark that can be used for our quest to continually improve our industry ourselves. So that was one of the things that we are able to stand firm on. Also, that snapshot represented about 1.5 million sheep of the flock from those that responded.
So some of the details about the study is a year ago when the ALB met, the decision was made at that point to not take on a very costly and complicated carbon emission study, because you go through this very defined methodology and you come out with an emissions number, but instead to look at a broad range of sustainability issues. And so we were able to uncover some very valuable data on a number of key sustainability indicators, including grazing, animal handling, and employment practices and community impacts of operations that are both producing and feeding lambs.
Okay, and there is a summary of this survey out at the lamb table. If you're interested, we did put together a summary of the highlights of the 96-page report that was delivered. And one of the things, if you're going to, move forward, it really uncovered first something that you already have a reputation for, and that is the lamb industry in general is known to be good stewards of the land. We don't know really why. We didn't have it necessarily validated or quantified, but we know that exists as far as a reputation, that your animals, by and large, as far as animal agriculture in general, there's a lot of care given to them, and that you really understand and are part of your local communities. So what we found in the results confirmed a lot of the reputation, but now we have a database of 1,100 survey responses that's going to help us substantiate that and also give us direction and give us those stories from the responses, the verbatim responses that came in and that we can use directly. We also identified best practices that we can specifically use now for messaging in order to continue in response mode or proactive mode, talking about the great story of the lamb industry. And then we identified some initial opportunities to work on. Very much another plan, action plan that the industry can take to continually improve itself. These are the opportunities for immediate communication should you have a need. And again, these are summarized in the highlight sheet that's available. One is just the environmental stewardship. We found out things like more than 70% of the respondents do things such as collect and use their manure either on open fields or they compost. Manure is actually an issue in the animal agriculture world. And so to have some of the statistics to back up the good use of it is really a key opportunity for you. We also know that your grazing practices and monitoring for optimal grazing, for soil management, for actual health of the animal is also a practice that in the response shows that you pay a lot of attention to that. As with animal care, we know that 86% of the respondents practiced at least 3 of the identified best practices in reducing stress of the animals within the context of either being moved or other activities within the production. So again, that shows that there is care taken, there's great thought applied to animal welfare. And then finally, I know what Undersecretary Avalos was talking about in the rural communities. More than 83% of operational budgets of the rural farms and ranches are spent in local communities. That's a significant dollar amount. And then more than 3/4 of the respondents volunteer in community service to the tune of 116 hours average per person per year. That's a significant contribution to your community, which you all know you did, but now we're able to quantify and tell that story collectively.
So some of these examples that Janet gave really show what are the bright spots and the data that we now have to back them up and the way that it strengthens the story going out. And really thanks to the Sustainability Working Group, thanks to the people that opened up their homes and their ranches to us when we were on our on-site visits. And most importantly, I mean, thanks to all of you and the 1,100 other people that participated in this survey. We've now got the most complete data set that's out there about the environmental and social impacts of U.S. lamb production. Beyond just being able to help tell your own story with these quantified numbers, the data also gives us an opportunity to check and see what are the opportunities for improvement in the industry. And just to sort of frame that discussion, I just want to put 3 things forward for your consideration, coming from somebody outside of your industry, but who works exclusively with agricultural companies that are all trying to navigate this sort of heady landscape of how to become more sustainable and how to get a return off of it. And the first one is your retailers and your customers don't need you to be perfect. They need you to know that you care about these issues, that you understand them, and that you're able to show continuous improvement year over year. Number 2 is get the right coalition together. And there's something that Bob mentioned, is it's going to take the expertise of everybody in the room and the groups that you're doing to come together and work on these issues and get some progress on so that the industry can show that. And number 3 is really take this on strategically. There's some intense conversations going on in the rooms around here. There's a lot on the minds of this industry. It may not be the right time to tackle everything all at once. But it is important to think about what is it that the industry can come together on that you're going to see some successes on and that you're going to be able to show your members and your customers this commitment to continuous improvement. So some just to unpack these very quickly for you, the first one around targeted grazing is this is a great story for the industry. But to give this story legs, we need to get really solid quantified numbers that we can talk about how this benefits people who own flocks, land managers, communities, government agencies, and the environment. There's a really interesting environmental story here that's not being told, and getting the numbers will give a huge opportunity to get this story out there. Second one is around getting a tool in the hands of all producers so that they can create an employee manual for their staff. This has benefits to not only reduce some of the risks there are to the industry, but also real upsides on that individual operations, for individual operations when they start looking at how to use a manual to be the best possible employer so that therefore you have the best possible employees. And the last one is a process or sustainability assessment, which is just to finish the data set so that we're going to have a complete data set from ranch to retail that really shows what the strengths of the industry are and continues to highlight where are the opportunities to improve.
About the carbon emissions and where we kind of went, or I won't say skipped over it, but kind of left it a little bit open at this point in time. There are, plenty of reports that are out there that have said that the sheep industry is the worst offender. Are you hoping to look at that information and work backwards into that to try to, we definitely feel that we're not, but hopefully vilify our side of the story?
Yeah, that's a great question, and it really goes back to what I was talking about in terms of continuous improvement. So our first engagement with the American Lamb Board was when the Environmental Working Group came out and said, basically, if you care about the planet, you won't eat lamb. And we're seeing that report still propagating a year and a half later and still getting referenced. And so the decision that was made early was, do you go after that report head to head? And here's what happens if you do, is you replicate their study and you either find out that you're better, the same, or worse than them, and then what do you do with it? So what we did with carbon in this was to say, let's figure out for U.S. lamb, what are your major source of emissions that you, as producers and feeders, have some control over? Because if we know what you have control over, and we've got them identified down to the two key components, then what a strategy can be built that says, we care about this issue, and we're taking it on, and we're improving in these ways. So it really fits into that continuous improvement model, which is going to be just a more fruitful conversation than trying to fight these guys. Their data set was 3 farms. Okay, our data set is 1,113. So, but we want to be able to show a very progressive message that customers understand about, rather than trying to fight them on the numbers.